Have you ever been sleepy, and when you wake up for no apparent reason, you realize it's between 3 and 5 in the morning? There are certain people to whom this simply does not stop happening, and because of the persistence of the event, they come to question the reasons for this interruption in their rest. 1, 2, or even 3 times over a long period of time may be a considerable thing, something that doesn't really catch much attention. But when this becomes part of your routine, even happening every night, there are many questions that arise. But the answers to this may be closer than you think, and it is that in the spiritual context, there are certain questions that could bring answers for all those things that you ask yourself as a result of this repetitive event. And it is that we must understand that these hours have a profound meaning in the spiritual, and may even be bringing you a message or powerfully drawing your attention so that you become aware of certain energy moving in your life. To greater understanding and allow our being to be renewed in knowledge, today we will take a short walk through some of the possible explanations for this resentful aspect of your hours of rest, which will be reinforced by the knowledge that the illustrious Dolores Cannon has given us through her works. We'll go from the simplest to the most complex, so you're leaving here today with that answer you long for so much. So if this was what you were looking for, maybe higher forces have led you here to give you an answer, and you just have to pay close attention to the following explanations. Reason number 1. The thinning between the spiritual world and the physical world. The period between 3 and 5 a.m. is regarded as an hour of profound spiritual relevance, and is because it is believed that at this very moment there is a thinning of the line that divides the physical world from the material world, which means that it is a favourable time for greater activity of the mystical type to appear. It is as if during this short period of time, the interactions between humans and other kinds of beings and spirits were allowed to take place, thus allowing both to be more aware of the existence and energies of the other, and manage from there to exchange information and other types of messages. For many, this is a truly feared hour, because it exposes many to the imminent idea that there is something beyond the limits of what is known, something that few venture to know and experience due to the fear of leaving their comfort zone. Some people even come to give this moment the nickname of the witch hour, because he believes that those people who practice black magic and witchcraft use this time to enhance their occult work and the tricks they seek to do to others. The rumours and information that have spread over time about these hours make many feel very uncomfortable by the mere fact of getting up and realising that the clock is marking any time between 3 and 5 a.m. But according to Dolores Cannon and other great minds, this is actually a favourable time for absorption of knowledge. Besides, it is extremely powerful for conducting spiritual-type research, since the veil that separates the physical from the spiritual is quite thin, and if we know how to look for the energies of light, we can end up having all the answers we need. Rather than fear at this moment, we must be proud of the powerful spiritual call that is being made to us. For getting up at this hour is nothing more than a clear demonstration that beings from other dimensions are seeking to communicate and interact with us. For years, the fact of keeping in touch with beings and spirits has been stigmatized, because everything that is not on this earthly plane is believed to have the power to destroy us or end up ruining our lives. But in reality, things are not as they paint them. It is more than clear that at this present hour, this opening between the worlds is not only a gap of opportunity for the positive, but that evil energies and influences are also allowed to stick. But the awakening between these hours does not determine what kind of presence is seeking to draw our attention. In this sense, it is quite important to understand and accept the fact that the only way to be prepared and protected against the negative energies that are allowed to be attached at this moment is to cultivate the light and balance in us, and of course, to open ourselves in understanding to see the signals that tell us about the kind of beings around our being. According to Dolores Cannon, for these purposes, the exercise of meditation is extremely valuable, because by practicing it, it can help us protect our being from all this kind of attacks of the negative without counting. that it can, without any problem, help us to perfect certain skills in us that help us make the most of this moment of connection with the higher realms. Wake up at this time. It is actually a profound invitation to open ourselves up and absorb the knowledge that these beings of light that come from other dimensions can give us. Understanding that only those who possess great virtues and a powerful potential within themselves are invited in this way to expand beyond the limits of what is known. But not only this, many great researchers have given themselves the task of talking about the power of prayer and the deep moments of connection in these particular hours, for it seems that those things that previously presented some kind of barrier in the midst of the opening of this channel become minimal, and our requests are elevated to the highest levels. Dolores Cannon invites you to take a more open position with regard to awakening in these hours, and to make the most of this opportunity to connect with the elevated realms of ours, as she believes that this is the key point to be able to start flowing better with this event, and that we can understand what is behind its repetition in our lives. And it is that we must understand that within the immensity of the universe, it is impossible to conceive the idea that we are the only living beings, the only souls, or worse yet, the only civilization. There are other beings who are in much higher spaces, which by seeing us in processes already passed by, them seek to provide light and guidance for humanity, also to that leap of consciousness that is marked for us. The universe is a fruitful and designed space to accommodate life and to make every soul that exists in the midst of it reach its fullness. But not only the material fullness that we know, but one that speaks more of the growth of the soul. We cannot close ourselves to accepting the idea that there are things beyond what we know, because what we perceive is only a small extract of knowledge that has been stored in various places in the universe. With this in mind, Dolores Cannon's ideas about opening ourselves to this moment of connection with beings of other dimensions are presented as the most sensible, as there may be a key ingredient in the evolution and growth of our being. Reason number 2, you're hearing someone else's call. Although it may seem incredible, our reach is a point of sensitivity to the environment and the energies that move in it at these particular hours, so that we are more open to perceiving the calls and attempts of interaction of other people, and not only those of other realms as some have come to believe. In this sense, it is important to talk about the power of the interactions between souls, and the strength that a bond between the two has, being able to travel through time and space to reach and seek the presence and interaction with the other. According to Dolores Cannon, it's a reality that every time we focus our energy on another soul, it seems to feel it. And in ways we haven't explained yet, it ends up responding to this powerful call, because the way each soul was created is aligned with the principle of unity and mutual support. According to the works of this illustrious woman, souls have relationships with each other that are simply fascinating, which have been established long before their first arrival on Earth, and that are kept being honoured in each new incarnation that we have. What this woman has revealed to us is that before all souls voluntarily descend to this plane, they are given the opportunity to design the kind of life they will live. That is, the human experience they will enjoy, and that will help them with that evolution that they are seeking. In the midst of this plan, they not only agree on events and situations that are necessary for their internal work, but they also agree on relationships, ties and encounters with other souls, understanding that in the middle of that, there is a mutual interest and benefit for each side. This is how all the things that we will pass through, all those people who will accompany us, and of course, all those who will cross in one way or another with us in the middle of this journey, end up being scheduled. It is impressive, but it is true, that those people for whom we feel deep affection, or who we have a special relationship with, are in fact souls that we know from distant times, who have agreed with us an exchange of energies and knowledge that will allow us to overcome those things that we will encounter on this plane. Having this as a basis is that we can understand how our soul possesses the ability to feel when another is calling you by less technological and much more spiritual means, So we should not be afraid if in the midst of that awakening in the early hours of the morning, we feel as we invade thoughts and sensations that we recognize does not come from our own being. If in the midst of that sleep interruption that you are experiencing, you feel the call to communicate with a specific person, you get memories of him or her, or worse still, you feel like something has happened to him. It may not be a mere obsession with your being, much less a stupid idea arising of getting up in a hurried way. Our soul is so perfect and wonderful that even when we meet at long distances, at different times, and even without having frequent communication, it is able to feel that call of help that the other soul seems to be sending out from the depths of itself. We notice that while technology has been short in terms of communication, our soul, and that spiritual side to which few take care, go so far as to make even the greatest distances manage to break the bond between two people. As if of a 24-hour data transmission service, our being can perceive when that person with whom we have a special connection needs us, and not only that, but we can also take this as a strong indication that that special person is thinking recurrently about us, because in that way it is he that focuses and channels his energy to us, causing us to feel his call. When that person whom we remember the moment of getting up in those early hours of the day strangers us, one way or another, it ends up generating a powerful force that has the sole purpose of reaching us and bringing us to the reality of that being. As skeptical as you are about this kind of matter, we cannot deny that we are often tied to the other person from the depths of our thoughts and of our hearts, and that more than being an absurd and invented subject, it is a reality that we experience at times like these. If when you wake up between 3 and 5 am you feel like you are suddenly invaded by thoughts and feelings that do not come from you and what you are living, while you are presented with mental images of that person, his name and any other aspect of his way of being, you must understand that what you experience is nothing more than his remote call. From the moment of our creation, our souls were created and configured under the principles of unity, of love and cooperation, so that regardless of the depth of their relationship, the orientation that they will follow will always be that of support to that other being, coming each as necessary to the call of the other. Although on our conscious side the ego and other factors invite us to establish ourselves in individualism, in the bottom we will always be inclined to cooperate with those who inhabit this same earthly plane. Even when we do not know that we are helping the other, our connection with that soul is not merely coincidence. So your soul presence in the life of another person already constitutes a time of mutual growth, from which both parties are seen benefiting from the energy and knowledge that the other has to offer. But when this bond is filled with harmony and a deep feeling of love and compassion, everything that happens between these two souls can become much more intense, then encountering us with this kind of events, in which only with that recurring thought about the other person, it ends up gelling to our reality. Reason number 3. The channeling of ideas relating to our manifestation. It may be that not everything that originates this event in your hours of rest comes from other beings, but this hour is also conducive to starting to channel ideas of what wants to manifest in our reality. Although it sounds incredible, this moment you are in rest serves as a powerful moment of connection with ourselves and the universal and celestial forces. So one way or another, it is used to receive messages from those high frequencies. Much has been explored on the subject, and thanks to various research, especially the one given by Dolores, it has been determined that during this period, our body and mind enter a state of deep rest, from which the conscious part of us is allowed to work in minimal proportions. But as this happens, the subconscious part of our being takes up space and works in greater proportion. So from it we can be receiving messages about that precious package of blessings that the universe has prepared for us. This is a wonderful moment to receive a preamble of all that the universe is storing for us, and if we know how to take advantage of them, it is a moment of deep connection with our Creator and with the universe, from which we can focus better on what we are looking for. From this opportunity that this moment of rest gives us, we can also help ourselves to define the path to follow to obtain all that we have been looking for from the unconscious, because as we have seen in many cases, our soul can be leading us on the right paths to get what belongs to us without even knowing what is what we are pursuing. But there are moments like these when our being ends up opening up to receive these messages, the points where we confirm that we have not been left out of the sharing of blessings, but that we must focus our efforts in the direction indicated. We must open ourselves to understanding that many times our own consciousness plays against us, closing to see or receive this information. But if we manage to align ourselves properly and balance our being, no doubt what we are going to will be fantastic. Awakening between 3 and 5 a.m. can be the pronouncement of a wonderful moment of deep hope and communion with ourselves, since in our true essence is contained everything that from the soul we seek and is aligned with the higher plan that exists for us. The manifestation is an event that we all seek in our lives, one for which we have also been prepared since our creation. Because if something we must understand is that we were created with a divine gift, one that many call Creator's gift. This ability of our being refers to that ability we have to create, and according to various studies, this ability that we have is completely unlimited, assuming that everything we can draw in our mind can reach the physical world through energy. That's why being awakened between 3 and 5 invites us to think that there are indeed great things stored in the universe, with the sole intention that everyone can take and enjoy them, while we understand from there that our mind has incredible access to this information coming from higher realms. But although most of the time it's something unconscious, during these peculiar hours we can see how, when we wake up, our conscious side is able to receive those ideas that show us part of what we're going to end up generating in our lives. This is why it is important to observe the kind of thoughts and sensations that are generated in us from the moment we see our sleep interrupted. If these thoughts are aligned with deep desires, with goals and with projects that we are not yet realizing or hardly starting, we will no doubt be able to realize that the reason for our awakening is no different than this precious moment when we receive ideas of manifestation. To help in this type of cases, meditation and the visualization of the ideas that approach us at that moment is extremely useful, from which we can take advantage of this impulse to that manifestation that is set for our lives. But this can not only be a premonition of that connection with the universe that is intensifying, and that makes you start vibrating with that process of manifestation, but it also tells us that in one way or another we are called to manifest. This can be something truly promising in every aspect, because as we all know, manifestation implies alignment of being, at the same time as personal and soul growth that some feel as a highly challenging leap. In this same order of ideas, we have to understand that manifestation is an intrinsic concept of us, since we are constantly creating each of the things and the smallest experiences that are part of our reality. However, this is something that we do from the unconscious, and that often results in a stumbling walk, so we are urged to become aware of this process that occurs day by day and use it for our benefit. And this awakening in the middle of those early hours of the morning can be the perfect impetus, in addition to the guide we need to it. Reason number 4, a deep moment of spiritual connection. One of the reasons that Dolores Cannon associates with this phenomenon of waking up between 3 and 5 a.m. is that she tells us of our connection with the spiritual, which is strengthened by the quiet that this space of time provides, in which everything seems to pause for a moment to give us calm. We are all in one way or another connected with the mystic and with that spiritual world that few dare to explore, because we cannot forget that we are made of energies, one that is somehow connected to those higher energies that move in the universe. When we understand this, we realize that often what is presented to us in the middle of our life is not that simple isolated fact that we consider, but that it is about the higher energies and those beings of light that exist in other dimensions, seeking to contact us, and that from there we allow ourselves to see things in the most real and absolute way. Even if we do not want it that way, the spiritual is an aspect that encompasses our life, and everything we do has an impact on that spiritual plane, not counting that everything that moves there ends up causing a strong shock in our world and in all the earthly that forms part of our reality. Many people spend much of their lives ignoring this connection with the other planes and the beings that live there, so they end up completely closing themselves to the things that these realms offer us. However, there are moments that become favorable for our being to become aware of this connection and to experience it in full, thus allowing the energies of the universe to flow through us and these spiritual realms open to us a channel of interaction, providing us from there guides for our walk, as well as messages of encouragement. This is precisely what happens in that period of time between 3 and 5 in the morning, when the circumstances align perfectly so that even the closest being can perceive this spiritual realm very closely. Although the two realms are inevitably intertwined, the line that separates them manages to make many see it as a distant idea invented to give illusion and create expectation to those events in our lives that are not so easy to explain. But it is precisely at these hours that we can see how that line is becoming clearer and thinner, until we simply arrive at the point where what comes from that spiritual realm begins to invade the reality and spaces of the souls that are on this earthly plane. However, this is not the only factor to which it is attributed part of the responsibility for the deep connection that is felt at this moment, as it also speaks of the way in which the daily noise of the street and life seems to pause until it again dawns and we go out to face our reality. During this period, you can see how these elevated energies intensify, and in front of that thin veil that seems not to present existence, venture to take a step forward, facilitating from there the interaction between that specific soul and those beings of light that surround us. In the midst of this beautiful event, we succeed in experiencing the most intense way in which these beings personify themselves in our spaces, surrounding us, and although being imperceptible to the naked eye, managing to notify us of their stage in the place from the sensations and energy that we feel in the depths of our body. This reaction to these presences and to the opening of this channel of interaction, which arises from that moment of thin division between the spiritual and the earthly worlds, is represented by this act of awakening precisely in that period of time. And if this is something that's happening to you, before you think it's something more fatalist, you should sit down and evaluate what embarks on your being at the very moment you wake up suddenly, because that connection to the spiritual that this sacred moment has may be inviting us to explore this capacity of our being. A good part of us calls us not to omit the existence of this plan, but to go deeper into what it has to offer us, as does this author, who does not leave aside the premise that the key to everything lies in seeing with optimism this deep moment of connection. Reason number 5. Astral projection. This is a term that in many cases is unknown, and is that some still do not assume the idea that our being is, as we know it, is only a shell, a body that offers us a human experience in the middle of our journey, and that is a container for our soul, which is in itself what makes each of us what we are. During the manifestation of the phenomenon of astral projection, it is believed that the soul of the person leaves that physical body to undertake a short journey into all kinds of landscapes and times, leaving behind every limitation that we know on the earthly plane. In turn, this journey is so perfect and powerful as it leaves aside every load or limit that possesses our physical body, raising us from there the idea that this body of flesh, and then that we know, is nothing more than a servant of it for this experience that we have decided to live. These moments lead us to see the greatness that encompasses us, and the way in which we are called not only to stay with the known, but to let our soul guide us in the midst of a wonderful journey that can reveal to us how wide and profound each kingdom in the universe presents itself. And it's that Dolores Cannon, like other great thinkers, have devoted themselves to talking about the soul and that faculty that human beings have to pose themselves in the way they are, while in their center they keep a part of who we are that is much stronger and that possesses incredible abilities. Our soul seems to be an unsustainable part of ourselves, and however much we want to circumvent this idea, everything seems to coordinate in the perfect and correct way, so that the unsustained force of that part of us, which in turn represents the center of all that we are, is not overlooked. It is not for nothing that the illustrious Dolores canon catalogues us as multidimensional beings who are able to travel between this and other dimensions in search of knowledge, growth, and skills that are useful to us and our development. As we have seen, there is no doubt that beyond what we see, there is a whole world of opportunities, with an unlimited knowledge that is able to give us extra strength, to make us wiser, capable, developed. And although it may seem impressive, this is a phenomenon that may even come to occur in an involuntary form in our being, which will depend on our spiritual power and that call that the soul itself and the universe direct towards us. However, regularly when this happens, it is associated with a deep inner work that the being seeks to do to develop its consciousness and access the memories of past lives. Being regression therapies one of the great triggers of this event in our lives. There have been documented cases in which this relationship between astral projection and regression works is very strongly evidenced, bearing in mind that the regression practiced in previous days can lead to our soul, during the periods of dreams, to leave this body that we hold and begin a deeper search for what in other times has lived, the places to which it has travelled, and everything that is relevant and in one way or another has had an impact on what we are today. It is as if the mere fact of removing these energies will cause our soul to question how much it has lived and how much more of it has left in the forgetfulness, rushing us to project ourselves in astral, to travel to the lands and realms that are needed in search of answers. Our history may become much more extensive than we think, and plagued with symbolic events that have led us unconsciously to what we are today, which seems to be one of the great motivations of our soul to go out and explore its tracks. For Dolores Cannon, the possibility of being able to project ourselves in astral is an inherent ability of a person who possesses a very high level of consciousness and internal development, from which makes possible this exploration that goes beyond what we have on this earthly plane as a limitant. That's why this event is connected with an impressive push to go deeper into us and help develop our being consciously, because if we begin to master astral projection and the way we open up between dimensions and reigns with it, we can encounter an infinite pile of opportunities to absorb knowledge. Now, often when this ability begins to develop in us, we tend to wake up between 3 and 5 in the morning, which is precisely that moment of greater interaction between the earthly and spiritual worlds. This is something related to the return of our soul after that exploration, which is enhanced by the configuration of the energies and other aspects right at this time of the morning. It is important that we analyze whether this awakening is preceded by what in appearance are dreams of our being traveling to places far away or even unknown to us, because this can represent a clear indication of the true reason why we are awake at this hour, and that is no less than that developing ability to travel in astral. This ability is regarded as one of the greatest blessings we can receive, and it places our spirituality, the strength of our being, and the level of consciousness that we have at extremely high levels. For this reason, people are encouraged to open themselves to experience, and from consciousness, to carry out meditations and deep contemplations of our being that help them to focus their being and therefore to manage this ability to pleasure. Reason number 6, communication with our guardian angel. Although many people still choose to see the awakening at this hour as something negative or as a premonition that dark entities are surrounding us, the truth is that thanks to that line that seems to be erased at this moment, and that delimits the physical world of the terrestrial, things arise in a perfect way for this hour to take place, the communication between our soul and beings that are in higher dimensions and aligned with higher vibrational frequencies. Not only are the souls who have gone into the spiritual realm who possess the ability to contact us, but there are also heavenly beings who can interact with us to offer us their guidance, their consolation, and even some of the healing energies emanating from their being. This means that in the middle of this time we can also end up in contact with angels, who from desire come to you to provide light and protection to your soul in the midst of their walk. But something extremely peculiar happens, and is that there is the belief that there exists a particular angel who is committed to take care of our life and the development of our being from the very moment of our conception and arrival to this world. This particular celestial being is known as our guardian angel. This is a concept that comes to be extremely popular in various cultures, so many have ended up taking the idea of this angel as a reference to those higher forces that revolve around our lives and drive the development of our growth and perfection process. That is, not only take care of us, but are also guides and drivers of our evolutionary process. These spiritual and heavenly guides have a great importance according to the studies carried out by great minds and experts in the field of metaphysics, because their work is extremely wide and meaningful in the midst of our existence. So the idea that they are the ones who wake us to seek to contact us in these hours can prove to many something exciting and covered with an energy of hope. According to various spiritual beliefs, these angels contact us at times of greatest need, and not precisely in a material aspect, but they come to us to provide guidance in the most tangible way when we are faced with very difficult situations on an emotional level, or even in those moments when we do not know with certainty what direction is to take. The ability that he has to provide comfort and support to our soul is simply precious, and with his only presence they already manage to heal their protected ones, without counting that they can renew their forces and fill them with hope and everything necessary to overcome every stretch of their journey, especially those who present them with the greatest difficulty. In this sense, it is important to emphasize that there is not a single thing that our guardian angel does not know, nor a situation before which he is not willing to provide his support. But according to the way in which everything is configured, they can end up feeling the desire or the deep need to approach us. Now, according to all that we have explored, it is not strange to think that being this time between 3 and 5 am so favorable for the interactions between beings of different vibrational frequencies and different planes. These guardian angels take advantage of the opening of things and seek to get us up so that we receive information, knowledge and guidance that they consider necessary for our walk. But the appearance of this attempt to communicate has a peculiarity that manages to make it a little easier to recognize it, and is that these guardian angels regularly seek to make contact at most significant hours, such as the 3:33 of the morning and even the 4:44. This arises in the form of a beautiful synchronicity, one that our being can detect to simplify the idea that what is received is a message aligned with the highest frequencies and with the light. As we have discussed on other occasions, the appearance of this kind of synchronicities has a profound meaning, and they are subtle signs that the universe gives us to make us aware of certain details and certain things that are moving in our reality, but also on a spiritual plane. Understanding this is not strange that we observe how our guardian angel seeks to rise to establish contact in hours that are very punctual and full of meaning. So another aspect to be assessed when determining what is the reason for this interruption of our rest in the earliest hours of the morning. But this does not come alone, but those who assert to have been contacted by angels in the midst of this so special hour recognize in them a sense of confidence and deep familiarity at the time of waking up, which is not strange to think given what their presence represents and implies. It is as if instead of awakening in a surprising way, these angels awaken us with love, tenderness, and a lot of desire to provide us with knowledge and guidance, which happens precisely in the framework of this time when we become more sensitive and helpless. It is important to open ourselves to recognize the signs that our guardian angel is seeking to contact us, and to know how to take advantage of these moments of light and deep love that they give us, from which we can end up obtaining the guides and all the knowledge that is necessary to be able and know to overcome every stretch of our journey with courage and hope. Opening ourselves to these moments of connection with our guardian angel and other celestial beings can bring us great benefits. At the same time, it can flood our lives with light. Reason number 7, the need to be more self-compassive. Although it may seem shocking, one of the reasons why people wake up more often at this hour is that inherent need to give compassion to ourselves, one that arises from an unconscious point of view and speaks of the need for reflection. There are people who, in addition to being extremely demanding about what they do and the way they develop their lives, tend to be tough and even abusive in their treatment of themselves, which does not in any way imply that they are in the same way with other people. For something truly surprising is the fact that in most cases these individuals are extremely compassionate and loving to others. There are many internal factors that can make us feel like people completely incapable of giving love and compassion to ourselves, and this is largely related to the way we appreciate oneself, how we see that reflection of our being and the traumas that we have been able to generate during childhood. While it is true that from the moment we reach this level, we do so to heal and seek to perfect ourselves, that perfection to which many aspire is extremely extremist. And sometimes it can be taken as far as to end up being extremely demanding with our performance, as if perfection came determined by the absence of errors in our lives. It is important to remember that the journey we make on this earthly plane is extremely rich and varied, plagued with moments of challenges, which even if we do not go through in the best way, they end up bringing knowledge and important lessons to our lives without counting on, allowing us to develop the skills necessary for the rest of our journey. There is not one thing that definitely marks our duty not to be wrong, because even these failures are part of the experience that we are facing and that leads us to the evolution and perfection of our soul. Without mistakes or things to fix, the journey that we make on earth would have no meaning, which is why it makes no sense to condemn ourselves for this kind of things, despite which there are still people who do it and who end up being the worst bastards of their own being. It is because of this that the universe approaches them as a way of bringing us to internalize what they are doing to themselves. But it does so at these very specific hours of the morning, for it comes at the moment when we find ourselves most vulnerable, and when our mind is at a propitious point for internalizing and accepting these divine messages that the universe and the higher energies and planes send us. This is a time when, rather than being provoked to cut that state of rest, it is propitious for us to know how to provide comfort and rest to our being, to whom we come to demand in the worst ways in search of meeting the standards and strong social demands. With this in mind, it is important to highlight the fact that normally these standards do not take into account the strengths and needs of each individual, but obey a pattern or a kind of pattern that is impossible to establish for all souls in the world. We are diverse, varied beings with different needs and abilities, so exerting this strong pressure on our being for the sole reason of meeting a social milestone is simply wrong. And this is precisely what the universe is trying to make us understand. That is why it invites us to get up at these hours, in which the noise of everyday life simply disappears, to give a moment of rest to the individuals, and from that peace to analyze the way in which we are treating ourselves. So one of the aspects to evaluate when waking up repeatedly between 3 and 5 a.m. is whether we are being insufficiently flexible with our flaws, or if we are demanding in an inhuman way. If you feel that you have been forcing yourself to the extreme in any aspect of your life, this is a time for you to evaluate what is happening and try to give it a solution, because the universe itself points it to you and invites you to improve that aspect of yourself. Reason number 8, the spiritual awakening. To conclude, one of the most common points that explains our awakening between this time range comes from that moment of spiritual awake that we all expect, and to which we are all destined, one that is rooted in the growth of our being and our development in every aspect of our lives. This is one of the most precious moments that the human being can experience, as it seems to open it to see the world with other eyes, and suddenly disappear those illusions that filled our lives to give way to a much wider and more real view of everything that surrounds us. From this moment, we begin to conceive the existence of that spiritual aspect and of everything that makes it. At the same time, we align ourselves with love, compassion, and understanding. This is a precious moment, one that can also make us end up awakening at those early hours of the morning, because as we have been explaining throughout our encounter, that is the moment when it is easier to appreciate the spiritual kingdom and receive the messages of it. Thanks to the fact that we find ourselves more receptive to what is around us and the way in which the energies flow, this time is a very rich time for those who have awakened, because it allows them to see in a clear way everything that has come to be part of their conscious knowledge. It is an enriching moment that our being cannot avoid, so we are awakened to start receiving those messages that were previously kept on track. For we are now able to accept them and to use those guides that are given to us for the benefit of our soul and our goals. This is also a favourable time to begin to discover that mission that we have on this earthly plane, which is only unveiled from our awakening and increase in the level of consciousness. Why we do not waste this space of time to try to help that soul to find the direction of its path. This awakening has been extensively studied for years, and it is believed to be a pretext of a better lifestyle and a more harmonious walk on this plane, not counting that it tells us about the manifestation of our dreams and goals. So if you've opened up in consciousness, that's probably why you're awakening at this magical time of growth. But only each one of us, from a sincere and objective evolution, can tell the true reason for the recurrence of this event. That's why I invite you to tell me in the comments section if you've experienced this and what you think is the cause. And I would also like you to share this information with someone who needs to find answers. And if you like our meeting today, you can let me know with a like, in addition to subscribing to access more content like this, because in this space we will be bringing every day a new knowledge useful for our journey from the hand of the greatest researchers in the area of metaphysics. For now, it is time to say goodbye, but soon we will be reunited again in the distance. Until then, I send you a lot of light and blessings.